I need to learn some new moves. I still haven't learned them. Good evening, friends. I had to bring my notes because I'm not as good as the other two gentlemen. I want to congratulate my fellow honorees in the class of 2018, and I've admired your work for many years. I've got to acknowledge my family, my friends that are sitting here. My sister's here with me. My sister girlfriend is here. My former athlete is here. My brilliant daughter is here with her sister friend. All my coaches who support me and love me despite me, and I appreciate that. There have been coaches throughout my career that have really helped me get to this stage and have really worked on behalf of hundreds of student athletes, and I couldn't have done anything without their help. I want to appreciate my boss for being here. He's just been a great supporter of my program, and now I want to talk about how I feel about being here. When I learned I was being inducted into the cross-country USTFCCCA Hall of Fame, I received a lot of calls from people from all over the country. My sister friend, Carol Smith Gilbert, called, and she said, "Congratulations." And then she said something that I really had to think about. She said, "I have to get a new dress." And I had to think about that too. I guess I have to get a new dress. This summer, my daughter and I took a trip to Africa. It was the first time we had stepped foot on that continent. While there, we took an excursion out onto the Atlantic Ocean in hopes of seeing some whales. The further out we got from land, the ocean changed colors from real pretty blue to an ink black. The heightening of the swells of the waves drenched us with salt water, and there was no land in sight. I thought about my ancestors who had crossed the Atlantic in slave ships at the bottom of ships in chains, headed to the Caribbean and the United States. I thought of their peril, their fear of the unknown, the remarkable abuse and degradation they endured, and their resilience to have lived through this torturous journey. It made me very emotional and also very grateful for the freedom, prosperity, and liberties afforded me and people that look like me. This ceremony is also very emotional for me, while giving me the opportunity to pay homage to my ancestors, my mentors, and the many others that have provided me safe passage to this stage tonight. 30 years ago, I began my coaching career with the intention of assisting Dr. Nell Jackson for 2 years while working on my master's. Dr. Jackson was the head women's coach and women's athletic director at Michigan State. After the completion of my program, I figured I would move on to administration. That never happened. It never happened because history was shaping a new era for girls and women in sports. Title IX became the law of the land, and women were granted more opportunity and visibility in athletics by becoming members of the NCAA. The juxtaposition of women from the AIAW to the NCAA found Dr. Jackson, who had once been among 90% of women administrators and coaches of women's sports programs, with the painful decision of becoming a subordinate administrator at MSU or vacating her position to assume a leadership role at another institution. She left, and the AD asked me to be the women's track and field coach. I agreed only because my grassroots coach and the head men's track and field coach at Michigan State, Mr. Jim Bibbs, urged me to do so. I never thought of being a coach. What I thought I could do in this new role was to be a conduit between a young girl and her dreams. Through scholarship and opportunity, girls could earn a degree of their choice while at the same time participate in the sport we all love. Obviously, no. I'd coach for a couple of years and then I'd go into administration. Still didn't happen. As a coach, it's important to win, and good coaches attract great talent. As a young recruiter, I was losing kids to schools that weren't as prestigious as Michigan State and to programs that I knew weren't as invested in the well-being of student athletes as I was. A Brooklyn girl named Odessa Smalls enlightened me after spending 2 years of recruitment only to be told she wasn't coming to my school. Why, Odessa, why? She said simply, I've never been coached by a woman. All of my coaches have been men. I couldn't believe that my gender was her determining factor. That was the moment I understood the importance of having girls, having coaches that looked like them. By the way, Odessa did come to Michigan State University, where she won 13 Big Ten championships and numerous All-Americans. I want to publicly thank the men that played a pivotal role in my development. Coach Bibbs was my champion, my confidant, my therapist. I called him a few months ago to tell him I owed him a lot of money because at the time we didn't have therapists. Therapy back in those days was your mother telling you, you better rally and get yourself together. So thank you, Coach Bibbs, for always being there to pick up my pieces. Coach Ed Temple, who taught me the importance of always being a lady on the track, but a beast, being a lady off the track, but a beast on the track. He taught me the meaning of second chances. Coach Sam Bell, the legendary coach in Indiana, took me under his political wing and made me become a regional rep to understand the only way to change a system is to be a part of the political community. Mr. Steve Simmons demonstrated the power of relationships, friendship, and timing. In 2002, after a very successful year, I was told by my AD that my contract was not going to be renewed. I walked out of the office after having told him, thank you, and wondered, what are you thanking him for? Your ass just got fired. By the time I got home, Steve Simmons had called me, and he asked what happened, and I told him. He said, I'm gonna make a few calls, and then I'll get back to you. In less than a week, Russ Rogers called. His longtime assistant had vacated her position for another job, and he invited me to come on and join him. Through the power of networking, Steve and Russ changed the trajectory of my professional career, and I will always thank them and be indebted to them for that. Mr. Gene Smith and TJ Shelton, my athletic directors, and immediate supervisor, for trusting me with the rare opportunity to direct a Power 5 track and field program and allowing me to continue to grow. Research reveals participation numbers of women athletes growing exponentially, while numbers of women coaching women has gone from 90% when I was a student athlete and a young coach to less than 50% over the past several decades throughout the spectrum of all women's sports. This precipitous decline narrative has entered a new phase and phraseology called stagnant. Women are no longer making gains in leadership positions as coaches. For track and field, the D1 percentage of women head coaches coaching women is 19.4%. The percent of women coaching men is 9.8%. And the percentage of women, according to studies by gender equity experts and researchers, is less than 3%, coaching a dual program. The greatest percentage of women coaches is highest at the entry level, grad assistants and volunteer coaches. Then there's a drop-off. I mention this to bring attention and emphasis to this gross gender inequity. The question I now ponder is, who will be the voice of women for the next generation? How can we mitigate the stagnation of women in leadership positions in sport? Some of the reasons I've heard for not hiring women include they may have kids. That's what we're built for. We are built to give life, to nourish life, and to protect life. Women aren't applying for jobs. We need to make a greater effort to identify and support women with potential to be coaches. Then through professional development, coach them up. That means allow for mistakes and recognize mistakes as opportunities to learn. Contact veteran and accomplished coaches like my sisters, Bev Kearney, Carol, Connie, Beth, and many others out here, and ask them who's in the pipeline for consideration. Connect women to other women in leadership positions for networking opportunities. Also, show women on your staff appreciation for their extreme abilities to juggle their kids, manage student athletes, work tirelessly on behalf of our programs while maintaining the integrity of their families. Expressions of gratitude may keep more women in the game. Nelson Mandela said, "Don't be afraid to grow and to let others grow with you." In closing, I want to share an analogy my daughter made to her psychology colleagues when discussing gender roles. She said, men don't own masculinity and women don't own femininity. My mother is the prettiest woman in the room, and she's as competitive, as hardworking, as fearless as any man I know. That's one of the greatest compliments she's ever given me, to see these typically male attributes as beauty in her eyes. Girls need strong male figures in their lives, and strong men are not afraid of women. In his book, Hope Dies Last, Stud Turkle said, "We have to take the baton when it's passed and run as hard and fast as we can, and then pass it on to someone else." I hope that's what I'll be remembered for. Thank you very much.